Hey guys, Crystal here, and I'm going to try to film this without all the background noise, but I can make no promises because my neighbors are home and they've been thumping around, so there may be a lot of cuts in this video. But I wanted to sit down today because I just finished the first draft of my current work in progress, codename Red Dragon, which has nothing to do with dragons, it's evolved as a thing, so we'll just call it that. So this is a monthly wrap-up for the project, but also a draft wrap-up because I'm done with this one stage of the project and it will be moving forward with other works that I'm looking back on. So there was a big thump and now I lost my train of thought. So if you've been following me, you'll know that I started this most recent project as a Camp NaNo project. This was actually a rewrite of a half-finished draft that I gave up on a couple of years ago for health issues and stuff that happened. So I came back to this story, I replotted it, I changed some of the details, and so I wanted to kind of talk about the things that happened in this draft. First, it kind of completely took a whole new life. I had an idea that I wanted to work with. I was working towards writing a sort of Beauty and the Beast story. That is not what it became. It actually completely changed. I would say it's more along the lines of a Secret Garden Jane Eyre story now. And I also found that as I was drafting and writing, the story evolved from what I thought of as a fantasy with historical elements to what is really a historical mystery with some bits and pieces of magical realism in it, not significant amount, but a completely different story. I allowed that to happen. I did not just like stick to the original plan. I knew that that original plan is still a thing I would like to come back to and explore, but this story just was taking me in a different direction and I went with it, and I'm glad I did. I stumbled a couple of times, and I mentioned in my most recent update that there was a brief period where I had to kind of stop and backtrack because I hit a wall and I wasn't sure where to go with the story. The plot as I had developed it was kind of just stuck there. Like there were a few things that needed to be ironed out, and I did, and I backtracked and worked it out. But the story change was part of that problem. I had still been thinking of the original idea, and it just wasn't going to work out that way. The mystery that was building was not the same mystery I had originally come up with, and so I needed to figure out why this was happening and how I was going to get out of it. I knew how it was going to end, but I needed to figure out those middle parts, like, you know, what are the domino effects that are going on in order for this thing to come about at the ending. So I had to backtrack and do that. So I found that I basically switched genres when I originally drafted this versus the original time when I first started writing the story and gave up on it. And I also completely changed points of view. I tend to be a third-person point of view writer, and I prefer to also read in third-person point of view. I know that first person is very popular, especially in YA, and this is actually a YA story that I've been working on, but I don't generally gravitate towards first person. However, when I first started writing this draft, it just felt right to go into the first person narrative, so I started experimenting with it just that first couple of chapters and told myself, if this doesn't feel right, I'll just go and switch it out. But it did feel right. I felt like I needed that immediacy with the character that I had never gravitated towards with other stories. This story just felt like it needed to be closer to that one point of view character. So I decided to experiment with it. It's the first time I've written a full draft of a novel using strict first person point of view. And that led to some things that I did not expect, including a much shorter draft than I planned. So my initial draft idea was to produce a draft of around 65,000 words or so to work with. As I was writing, I had kind of like a moment of crisis when I was just completely despairing because I realized that this was going to be a much shorter novel than I had planned and intended. Part of that was due to that first person point of view. I find that as I was writing, I tend to be kind of sparse with my words, and I always have to go back and kind of put details back in as I draft. First person made my writing even more sparse, I feel, than normally I write when I do third person. So I know that as I go back to edit this draft, there will be a lot of scenery that will be added in, there will be a lot of sensory details that will get added in, even though I tried to make myself always come back to that and explore those elements. There are just times when I feel like I'm too much in the character's head and I need to go back and add that back in. But as I told myself when I was freaking out, it's fine, this is just a first draft. These words are going to change, these words are going to evolve, and they're going to grow. So accepting that took some doing. I had to talk myself out, like away from the ledge a few times, because I really was panicking that this was just going to be way too short. At one point I thought this was going to be like a 40,000 word, which is not even a novel, and that had me panicking. So part of this whole process was reminding myself that it's just a draft. You can edit and post. That's pretty much it. So I was able to talk myself out of that. I just kind of had to sit with those feelings and emotions and accept that this novel is very different from anything I've written before. It is in a point of view that I don't normally gravitate towards and so have less experience with, and it is also a genre that I did not think I would be writing in. So a lot of elements have to come together in the next couple of drafts in order for it to be a better story and to flourish a bit more than it has. But it's a draft, it's finished, it's the first step in this process, and I'm happy that it's done. Mostly because as I was writing this, I kept finding that there were some changes I wanted to make to my other draft that I'm querying. I have already queried, I think about 20, maybe 15 or so agents, and some have provided feedback, some have just sent form rejections. So there are some changes I want to make, but I wanted to concentrate on that. I didn't want to kind of like half-ass both projects. So because I was putting all my energy into the work in progress, I felt like I wasn't putting as much attention and detail as I wanted to into the query draft. And I don't want to do that because this is like your one shot. I don't want to waste my one shot on a half-assed edit. So I'm going to go back. As I was working on the other project, I did write down the notes and details that I wanted to fix. So I'm going to go back to that project, revamp the first few chapters, look through some other areas that I want to fix in the draft itself, and start the query process again. So I put that on hold for a bit. I'm going back to it now. And next step is to work on a draft that has been sitting for a while on my computer. I worked on this project in 2015 or 2016, I think. I have to look at my dates, but I think it originally started in 2015. And it's just kind of been sitting there while I work on other drafts and, you know, deal with the realities of having a full-time job and not a ton of time for writing. So I want to go back to that project. I want to see if it's as good as I remember it being, because I was really proud of that one, and it kind of fits into the world of my current project, so I'm hoping that it won't feel like I'm completely switching gears and going into a very different story. So that's what I'm planning for June. I am excited that this project's done. I'm going to let it sit while I work on the other two. I'm going to query again. I'd like to send out another 5 queries by mid-month. And I'm going to get started on the read-through of that other project. I downloaded, because I really need to fix my revision process. I feel like I'm efficient at writing, I am slow at editing, and that's something I want to work on because I need to get better at it. I need to get more efficient, I need to make use of the time I have and use it more effectively and make better progress. So I downloaded Susan Dennard's revision process. I've never followed her revision process. I've followed a few of her other tips and tricks. I've tried various methods that I've read in books and on other writing blogs and in AuthorTube. And so far, I just have not developed a process that I'm happy with. So we'll see if her process works or if I can borrow from it. Kitty cat's eating in the background, if you hear that noise, sorry. So that is that. I will check in with you guys next month and see how it's going. But for now, I'm going to be reading and figuring out a new process and querying some more. So I'll talk to you guys later. Let me know how your projects are going down below, and I'll see you soon.